before we get into all the hospitals that have went on strike or have tried to go on strike in 2023, I just want to go over some of the numbers for a Providence hospital in Oregon. It did go through a strike or a situation, and they're currently in negotiations. So I just want to go over some of the numbers and some of the stuff that I have looked into, just to maybe just get a good idea of what's actually going on from a numbers standpoint. I was looking at some of the financials of the hospital and how much they actually make and how much they spend. I was curious on how much they spent on employees, and I was just brainstorming of how much money is actually in this system. And I didn't look at the whole Providence history financial wise. I just looked at this first quarter. So this quarter ended in March. So I looked at that quarter, looked at some of the numbers, and I compared it to some of the quarters prior and some of the years prior, just to kind of get an idea of how things were flowing. So to give you an idea, this one hospital, the total hospital value of assets is $28 billion. So this hospital and everything that it has is worth $28 billion. Net assets, which is its assets and its liabilities, it's basically what it has and what it owes to things and what it still has to pay for or give out. So if you subtract those, you get about $17 billion. So in a way, half of its assets technically are being taken over by something else because they maybe have dues to pay for, things like that. The cash and cash equivalents on hand. So what that means is how much cash the hospital actually has, or things that can be turned into cash quickly, like certain securities, certain financial tools, things like something that they could trade for cash right away. Not something that they could sell, like hospital beds, or sell like a building, something that they could turn into cash real quickly, or the cash that they have on hand. And that number is $1.2 billion. So they have a little bit over $1 billion cash on hand, ready to go. If they need to put something somewhere, they have that power. They have that power of $1 billion. And then I also looked at the 2019 to 2022 total cost of salaries and benefits. So from 2019 to 2022, the salaries and the benefits increased about 15%. But this doesn't mean that nurses received a 15% bump in pay over the last 3 years. This is just the general looking at their financial statements. Their cost of staff and benefits went up 15%. And remember, usually the higher ups get a bigger percentage of an increase. So the 15% isn't really what the nurses receive. This is just how much their cost went up. Management might have got 20%, CEOs might have got 25%, nurses might have got 6%, 7%. It doesn't specify in the financial documents. I have to physically call the place and ask. I definitely wouldn't get it because it's hard to get it in your own hospital. So imagine how hard it's going to be to get it from a hospital you don't work at. So the cost of staffing and benefits went up 15% from 2019 to 2022. Remember, I'm going to say it again. It doesn't mean that nurses got 15% more in pay over the last 3 years. I do want to point out one thing is the operating expenses. So this has went up for hospitals. So if you subtract the operating, like you could say, costs and how much they're bringing in, this Providence hospital was negative $345 million so far for the quarter of 2023. So far, going to 2023, they're already negative over $300 million, which is a lot. But if you look at it from a bigger standpoint, the hospital has been profitable for many years on end. The hospital is more profitable than it is negative in a sense over the years. For the last 10, 15 years, the hospital made more than it lost guaranteed. So this might seem like a lot of money, but remember that hospitals, if they're functioning, they're making money, because no one's going to support a hospital that is not making money. I'm not saying that, okay, 1 quarter of not being profitable, you're not going to shut the place down. You're not going to shut it down, because lots of times when you're expanding a hospital, you're going to show it as a loss at the end of the year. You're going to show it as a loss on a quarter, which, yeah, it looks bad on paper, but you're using that loss to make more money in the future. This is now happening here. The hospital here is losing money because of the whole widespread infection. So it took a loss. So you kind of understand why these hospitals don't really want to negotiate with nurses or negotiate with anybody that's working in healthcare, because they're losing money. So they don't want to introduce anything that's going to cost them more money if they're already losing money. So this is why nurses and other healthcare professionals are struggling to get what they really want, because these hospitals are trying to put it off for probably next year. They don't want to do it now, because right now they want to be able to make up for the money that they lost over the last couple of years. Because Justice Hospital, if you look back at 2022, at one point they were losing $500 million. Right now they're from losing $500 million to now losing $300 million. So they went from losing $500 million to now losing $345 million. So they're making it back slowly. It's going to take some time, but I just want to let you know why these hospitals are not wanting to just do anything or change anything, because they want to keep the status quo until they can figure out how to make this money back. I'm not giving them any sympathy. Don't get me wrong. I'm not sympathizing with these hospitals. I'm just trying to let everybody understand that these people also have goals that they work for in the hospital, right? As nurses, our goal is to upkeep patient satisfaction, upkeep standards, all that kind of nursing stuff. There's just people on the other side that are there in place to make the hospital money. So if they don't have the hospital making money, they don't have a job. So this is why it's kind of happening, is that these hospitals are a little bit less open to negotiating, because they are losing right now financially. Maybe they might be more open to negotiation in the future when they are making money, but right now they really don't want to talk. They really don't want to say anything. They don't want to do anything. They don't want to even whisper anything. They don't want nothing happening. Is that the right thing to do? Of course not. But this is just where we stand. I'm not saying, hey, pick a better time to strike, pick a better time to protest, or pick a better time to get what you want. I'm not saying that at all. If anything, this is a really good time to do this kind of stuff, because they're already operating at a loss, right? So they don't want to make that a bigger hole. They don't want to dig themselves a bigger hole. So right now, when shit's going down, it might be a good time for you to really get what you want, because some of these hospitals are sinking ships right now, and they're trying not to sink. The water's coming in, but they have a plan to get that water out. So right now the water's coming, but they're getting that water out slowly. The water's leaving the boat. They're staying afloat. It's working, and they know that whatever they're doing is going to work. They just need the time to work. They have enough people with buckets dumping that water out. It's just happening slowly. It's happening slowly, but they're doing it. They're cranking it out, but slowly. So this is actually a really good time for us to kind of stir the pot a little bit more, because if there's more water coming in and more holes, it's a lot harder to dump out that water. So if you just stir the pot, right now is a time to get what you want, because they're at a negative. So it's kind of like, it's a high risk, high reward situation, because hospitals don't want to negotiate, but also they're willing to negotiate too for anything, because they're so short in a sense.